Nobody noticed when Ava Reyes walked into the combat hall 5 minutes late. Nobody except General Dravik Sorn. The Caliph warrior stood 8 feet tall with dark green scales covering his body like armor. 4 muscular arms hung at his sides. His yellow eyes tracked Ava as she quietly joined the back row of cadets. "Human," his deep voice echoed through the hall. "You are late." Every head turned toward her. 30 alien cadets from 12 different species stared at the small human girl with dark hair braided tight against her skull. "A Filian cadet collapsed in Corridor 7, Ava said calmly. "His oxygen mixture was wrong. I helped him reach the medical station." "That is not your responsibility." "He would have died." General Dravik's 4 hands clenched into fists. He had replaced the regular instructor today for a special combat evaluation. The Academy headmaster had allowed it because Dravik was a legend. He had crushed 3 rebellions across the galaxy. His tactical mind was considered the sharpest among all Caliph warriors. He also hated humans with every fiber of his being. "Today we assess your combat readiness," Dravik announced to the class. "You will face training drones at increasing difficulty levels. This will determine your rankings for the semester." Ava watched as the other cadets performed their assessments. The Brevians moved with quick precision on their 6 legs. The Morvathi floated gracefully, their jellyfish bodies dodging attacks with ease. The other 3 human cadets did reasonably well. When Ava's name was called, she walked to the center of the hall. Dravik touched the control panel. She saw his fingers move to a higher setting than he had used for anyone else. The drones came faster, harder. Their strikes carried real force instead of the padded impacts used for other cadets. Ava said nothing, she simply moved. Her body was small compared to most species at the Academy. Humans were considered physically weak, slow, and fragile. What the other species did not understand was that humans had evolved on a death world. Earth had predators, diseases, extreme temperatures, and natural disasters that would have wiped out most galactic civilizations. Humans survived by being adaptable, by refusing to die. Ava ducked under a drone's strike and rolled sideways. Another drone clipped her shoulder, sending pain shooting down her arm. She kept moving. A third drone caught her leg, drawing blood through her training suit. The other cadets watched in uncomfortable silence. This was clearly unfair. The difficulty was far beyond standard assessment levels. Ava finished the course. She stood in the center of the hall, breathing hard, blood dripping from 3 separate wounds. Dravik looked at his data pad, barely adequate. A small Brevian cadet named Rillo whispered to his neighbor. She scored higher than anyone else today. "Silence," Dravik commanded. He walked toward Ava, towering over her like a mountain. "Humans do not belong at this academy. You were admitted through political manipulation, not merit. You survived through tricks and stubbornness, not true warrior capability." Ava met his yellow eyes without flinching. "I completed your assessment, General." "You completed nothing. You merely refused to fall down. That is not the same as victory." Today it was. Something dangerous flickered in Dravik's expression. The other cadets stepped back unconsciously, sensing the tension. "I have received permission from the headmaster to conduct a week-long intensive evaluation," Dravik announced, still staring at Ava. "I will personally assess whether humans deserve their place at this institution. By the end of this week, the truth will be clear to everyone." He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the silent hall. Instructor Yellen, a Morvathi who had been observing from the corner, floated toward Ava. "That was intentional provocation," she said quietly. "He wanted you to fail or to protest. You did neither." "I know what he wanted." "Be careful, young one. General Dravik lost many soldiers to humans during the border conflicts. His hatred runs deep." Ava watched the door where Dravik had disappeared. "So does my stubbornness." That night in the small human barracks section, the 4 human cadets gathered in Ava's room. They were the only humans at the entire academy. 500 cadets from across the galaxy, and only 4 of them were from Earth. "He's going to destroy us," said a young man named Peter. "Did you see those difficulty settings? That was lethal level." "So we train harder," Ava replied. "Train harder? Ava, he's an 8-foot killing machine with 4 arms. What are we supposed to do?" Ava thought about the Europa mines where she grew up. She thought about the collapse that had trapped her family in darkness for 6 days. She had been 11 years old. She had kept her younger brother alive by rationing every breath of oxygen, every degree of body heat. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They did not have scales or claws or telepathy. But they had something else, something the galaxy was only beginning to understand. "We survive," Ava said. "That's what we do. We survive until surviving becomes winning." Outside her window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere on this station, General Dravik was planning her humiliation. He had no idea what he was really facing. 3 days into General Dravik's evaluation, one of the human cadets broke. Peter walked into the headmaster's office and requested an immediate transfer. He could not take it anymore. The constant tests designed to exploit human weaknesses, the public humiliation, the knowledge that no matter how hard he tried, Dravik would find another way to make him fail. Ava watched him leave the station on a transport shuttle. 3 humans remained. The tests continued. Day 4 brought telepathic resistance evaluations. Humans had no natural mental shields. Their minds were completely open to species with psychic abilities. Dravik brought in a Menthari instructor, a being that existed as pure thought energy, to probe each cadet's mental defenses. Every species resisted for at least 30 seconds. The Caliph lasted 2 full minutes. Ava lasted 4 seconds. Dravik made her stand at the front of the class while he explained in detail why humans were mentally inferior. Their brains had evolved for pattern recognition and social bonding, not psychic warfare. They were vulnerable, weak, easy targets. Ava stood there and listened to every word. That night, she went to the Academy archives. The old records were stored in crystal data cores that glowed softly in the darkness. She searched for hours until she found what she needed. The border conflicts, 12 years ago. The Caliph 4th Battalion versus human colonial defense forces on the planet Threshold. The Caliph had superior numbers, superior weapons, and superior tactical positioning. They should have won in hours. Instead, the battle lasted 3 weeks. Ava read the after-action reports. She read the casualty lists. She read the personal logs of surviving Caliph soldiers. One entry caught her attention. A young Caliph officer described watching a human soldier continue fighting after losing an arm. Then, continue fighting after being shot through the chest. The human had covered the retreat of civilian transports for 11 minutes while bleeding out on the battlefield. The officer's name was Dravik Sorn. He had lost his entire battalion that day, not because humans were stronger or smarter, because humans simply would not stop. Ava closed the archive files and sat in the darkness for a long time. The next morning, she found Rillo waiting outside the training hall. The small Brevian had been assigned as her sparring partner, though Ava suspected Dravik had done this to humiliate them both. "I want to help you train," Rillo said quietly. His 6 legs twitched with nervousness. "After hours in the secondary gymnasium." "Why?" "Because what the general is doing is wrong, and because you helped that Filian cadet even when it made you late. Nobody helps Filians. They are considered the lowest-ranking species in the coalition." Ava smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in days. "Let's train." They worked together every night. Rillo taught her the weak points of different species, how Brevians could not handle sudden loud noises, how Morvathi became disoriented in low humidity, how Caliph had nerve clusters under their primary arms that could paralyze entire limbs if struck correctly. On the 6th day, Dravik caught them. He burst into the secondary gymnasium like a storm. His 4 arms seized Rillo, and lifted the small Brevian off the ground. "Consorting with inferiors," Dravik growled. "This is grounds for expulsion." "He was helping me improve," Ava said. "That should be encouraged, not punished." "Silence, human. You have no authority here." Ava stepped between Dravik and Rillo. She barely reached the general's chest, but she did not move. "Your problem is not with Rillo. It is not even with humanity." She looked up into his yellow eyes. "Your problem is with yourself." The gymnasium went completely silent. Dravik dropped Rillo. The Brevian scrambled away, terrified. "You dare speak to me this way?" Dravik's voice was barely a whisper, which was somehow more frightening than a shout. "I read the reports from Threshold. I know what happened to your battalion. I know why you hate us." Something changed in Dravik's face. The anger remained, but beneath it, Ava saw pain, old pain that had never healed. "You know nothing," he said. "I know that hating us will not bring them back." Dravik's hand shot forward and grabbed Ava by the throat. He lifted her off the ground with one arm. She did not struggle. She did not look away. "I invoke the challenge," Dravik said. "Under old Calith military law, single combat, no weapons, to submission or death." He released her. Ava fell to the ground, gasping for air. "3 days," Dravik said. "Then we settle this permanently." He walked out of the gymnasium. Rillo rushed to Ava's side. "What have you done? The challenge cannot be refused. It cannot be stopped. The headmaster has no authority over ancient Calith traditions." Ava rubbed her bruised throat. Her voice came out rough and broken. "Then I guess I better not lose." Word of the challenge spread across Station Horizon 7 within hours. By the next morning, betting pools had opened in every sector. The odds were 200 to 1 against Ava Reyes. Most people considered those odds generous. Dr. Amara Wells, the only human physician at the academy, found Ava in the training room at midnight. The young woman was practicing strikes against a padded target, over and over, until her knuckles bled. "You need to withdraw," Dr. Wells said. Ava did not stop hitting the target. "The challenge cannot be withdrawn, you know that." "Then at least let me explain what you are facing." The doctor pulled up a holographic display. A Calith body diagram rotated slowly in the air. 4 arms, each one stronger than a human's entire body, armored scales that can stop small-caliber weapons fire, twice your mass, superior reach, superior speed in short bursts. "Can they be hurt?" Dr. Wells paused. "What?" Ava finally stopped hitting the target. She turned to face the doctor, blood dripping from her torn knuckles. "Can Calith be hurt? Do they feel pain? Do they have weaknesses?" "Yes, but accessing those weaknesses would require getting close enough to exploit them. Dravik will not give you that opportunity." "Then I will make the opportunity." Dr. Wells looked at this young woman from the mining colonies of Europa. 19 years old, small, scarred already from a life of hardship, and absolutely certain that she could face an 8-foot killing machine and survive. "Why are you doing this?" the doctor asked. "You could have stayed quiet. You could have survived the evaluation and moved on." Ava wrapped her bleeding hands in training tape. "When I was 11, a mine collapsed on Europa. My family was trapped for 6 days. My parents died on day 2. The rescue team said there was no way anyone could have survived. They stopped digging." "But you survived." "I kept my brother alive, 7 years old. I rationed every breath of oxygen. I held him when the cold got so bad he could not feel his fingers. I told him stories to keep his mind working. And when the air ran out, I gave him my mask and hoped that someone would hear us before I stopped breathing." Dr. Wells said nothing. "They found us 8 minutes before I would have died. My brother lived because I refused to accept that survival was impossible." Ava finished wrapping her hands. "Dravik thinks humans are weak because we break. He does not understand that we are strong because we break and get back up." She returned to the training target. Late that night, an old Calith found Ava in the garden section of the station. He walked slowly, His scales faded gray with age, his movements careful and deliberate. "You are the human who challenged General Sorn," he said. "He challenged me." "Same result." The old Caliph sat on a bench near the artificial plants. "I am Vorin. I maintain the gardens and the grounds, but once I was a soldier." "Border conflicts." Vorin nodded slowly. "I watched humans fight at Threshold. I watched them do things that should have been impossible. I watched them drag our wounded soldiers to safety even while we were trying to kill them." Ava sat beside him. "Why would humans save enemy soldiers?" "That is what I asked myself for 12 years. Vorin looked at her with ancient eyes. "I think I finally understand. Humans do not fight because they hate their enemies. They fight because they love something enough to protect it. When the fighting is over, the hatred ends. The love remains." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crystal chip. "This contains information about Caliph physiology, the weak points, the nerve clusters, the gaps in our armor. I should not give this to you. But I am tired of watching my people destroy themselves with hatred." Ava took the chip. "Why help me?" "Because if you win, it might finally heal the wound that has been poisoning General Sorn for 12 years. And if you lose, at least you will lose knowing that one old Caliph believed in you." The night before the challenge, Ava sat in her room with the 2 remaining human cadets. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, a young woman named Sarah put her hand on Ava's shoulder. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we are proud of you." "We all are," added David, the 3rd remaining human. Ava looked at their faces. They were scared. They had every right to be. If she died tomorrow, it would prove everything the galaxy believed about humans: weak, fragile, unworthy. But if she survived— "Get some sleep," Ava said. "Tomorrow is going to be interesting." Across the station, in his private quarters, General Dravik Sorn watched old combat footage. Humans fighting, humans dying, humans refusing to stay down no matter how many times they were hit. For the first time in 12 years, he felt something other than hatred. He felt doubt. The combat arena had not been used for a formal challenge in over 40 years. Today, 3,000 cadets and faculty filled the observation galleries. Screens across 17 star systems carried the broadcast. A human had accepted a death challenge from one of the greatest Caliph warriors in history. Everyone wanted to watch. Ava stood at the entrance to the arena floor. The sand beneath her feet was white and fine, designed to show blood clearly. The walls rose 20 meters high, covered with ancient Caliph symbols of honor and combat. On the opposite side, General Dravik Sorn entered. He had removed his ceremonial armor. He wore only simple training clothes, his green scales gleaming under the arena lights. His 4 arms hung loose at his sides, ready to kill. Commander Yessin floated to the center of the arena. The ancient Sorvin's crystalline body pulsed with soft light as he recited the rules. "Combat ends upon submission, unconsciousness, or death. No weapons, no outside interference. May your ancestors judge your worth." He floated away. Dravik and Ava faced each other across 15 meters of white sand. "You should not have come here," Dravik said. "You could have run, I would not have chased you." "I am exactly where I need to be." The signal sounded. Dravik moved faster than anything Ava had ever seen. One moment he was across the arena. The next moment, his fist connected with her chest and sent her flying backward. She hit the sand hard. Pain exploded through her body. She could not breathe. "Get up," she told herself. She got up. Dravik struck again, a blow to her shoulder that nearly dislocated it, a kick that cracked something in her leg, a backhand that split her lip and filled her mouth with blood. 3 minutes into the fight, Ava had not landed a single hit. The crowd watched in silence. They had expected her to lose, but not like this, not so completely. Some turned away, unable to watch. Dravik grabbed her arm and twisted. The bones snapped with a sound that echoed through the arena. Ava screamed, but she did not fall. She swung her remaining good arm at his face. He blocked it easily and threw her to the ground. "Submit," he commanded. "This is over." Ava pulled herself to her knees. Her broken arm hung useless at her side. Blood ran from cuts on her face, her arms, her legs. Every breath felt like fire in her chest. "Not yet," she said. She stood up. Something changed in Dravik's expression. Confusion. He had broken enemies twice her size with half this damage. They had all submitted. They had all begged for mercy. This small human girl simply stood up. He hit her again. She went down. She got up. Again, down, up. Again, down, up. The crowd began to murmur. This was not a fight anymore. This was something else, something they had never seen before. Dravik cracked two of her ribs with a devastating kick. Ava bent over, coughing blood, and then straightened and raised her one good fist. "Why?" Dravik shouted. "Why will you not submit?" Ava spat blood onto the white sand. "Because you have not beaten me yet. I have broken your arm, your ribs, you cannot even stand straight. How is this not defeat?" "I am still standing," she smiled through bloody teeth. "That means I am still fighting." 15 minutes had passed. The longest formal challenge in recorded Caliph history was 18 minutes. Dravik had won that fight in under 2. Now he faced a human girl who weighed less than one of his arms, and he could not make her fall. He was breathing hard, not from physical exhaustion. Caliph could fight for hours without tiring. He was breathing hard from something else, something he did not understand. Fear. Not fear of losing. Fear of what this human was showing him. Fear of what it meant about everything he had believed for 12 years. "Your soldiers at threshold," Ava said, circling slowly on legs that barely held her weight. "They died because humans would not give up. You hate us because we cost you everything you loved." Silence. "But hating us will not bring them back. Killing me will not bring them back." I said silence. He charged at her with all 4 arms ready to crush her into the sand. Ava did not try to dodge. She could not move fast enough anymore. Instead, she stepped into his charge, letting his momentum carry them both. She was inside his reach now, where his superior size became a disadvantage. Her good hand found the gap in his neck plates. Her thumb pressed against his throat. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to hurt. Dravik froze. "I can end this right now," Ava whispered. "One push and your windpipe collapses. You die in 3 minutes." Yellow eyes stared down at her. "Then do it." "No," she released the pressure slightly. "I do not want you dead. I want you to understand." "Understand what?" "That we are not your enemies. We never were." Something wet appeared at the corner of Dravik's eye. For a Caliph, this was the equivalent of complete emotional breakdown. "My soldiers," he whispered, "I watched them die." "I know, and I am sorry." Ava's vision was fading, blood loss, shock. She had seconds left before she collapsed. "But this war ended 12 years ago. It is time to let them rest." Her legs gave out. She fell against his chest, unconscious before she hit the ground. The arena was completely silent. Dravik looked down at the broken human girl in his arms. She had beaten him, not with strength, not with speed. With something he had forgotten existed. Mercy. Slowly, carefully, he lifted her and carried her toward the medical station. Behind him, 3,000 witnesses sat in stunned silence. They had just watched the impossible. The medical bay had never seen injuries like this. Dr. Amara Wells worked through the night. Broken arm, fractured ribs, internal bleeding, torn muscles, cuts and bruises covering almost every inch of Ava's body. By any reasonable medical standard, she should have collapsed within the first 5 minutes of the fight. She had lasted 23. Outside the medical bay, General Dravik Sorn sat on a bench and did not move. He had been there for 6 hours. Cadets walked past him, staring at the legendary warrior who sat alone with his head in his hands. Nobody dared speak to him. Nobody knew what to say. Commander Yessin floated past at midnight. The ancient Sorvine paused beside Dravik. The formal challenge was never completed, Yessin said. There was no submission, no death. Under traditional law, the contest remains undecided. Dravik did not look up. She won. Technically, neither combatant was declared victor. She won. Dravik finally raised his head. His yellow eyes were rimmed with exhaustion and something else, something that looked almost like grief. I have fought 100 battles. I have killed enemies twice my size. I have broken warriors who were considered unbreakable. He looked at the closed medical bay door. I could not break her. I had her at my mercy a dozen times. She simply refused to accept defeat. Every time I knocked her down, she got back up. Every time I hurt her, she used the pain to keep fighting. Yessin's crystalline body pulsed thoughtfully. Humans are fascinating species. They are terrifying. Dravik stood up slowly. I spent 12 years hating them because they killed my soldiers. I told myself they were monsters, creatures who survived through tricks and deception. And now I understand why my soldiers died. They did not lose to monsters. They lost to something far more dangerous. He looked at Yessin with ancient, tired eyes. They lost to people who loved something enough to die for it. Inside the medical bay, Dr. Wells finally stepped back from the operating table. Ava was stable. She would survive. But the recovery would take weeks, possibly months. The other two human cadets had been waiting in the corner all night. Sarah and David rushed forward when the doctor nodded at them. She is going to be okay, Dr. Wells said. But she is going to have scars, permanent ones. Her arm will never be quite the same. Her ribs will ache when the weather changes. She will not care about that, Sarah said. No, I do not suppose she will. 3 days later, Ava woke up. The first thing she saw was Rillo sitting beside her bed, his 6 legs tucked underneath him, his small furry face watching her with enormous eyes. You are awake, he whispered. I should get the doctor. Wait, Ava's voice came out rough and broken. What happened? Did I win? Rillo made a sound that might have been laughter. You did not hear? You did something no one has ever done. You made General Dravik Sorn cry. That does not answer my question. The challenge was never formally completed. You passed out before either of you submitted. Rillo leaned closer. But everyone knows you won. The entire galaxy watched you refuse to die. 17 star systems saw a human girl stand up to the greatest Caliph warrior alive and make him question everything he believed. Ava closed her eyes. Her body ached everywhere, but beneath the pain she felt something warm spreading through her chest. The other humans, she said, are they okay? Sarah and David have been here every day. The other cadets too. You have become something of a legend, Ava. People are calling you the girl who would not fall. I fell plenty of times. Yes, but you always got back up. Over the next week, Ava received more visitors than she could count. Cadets from species she had never even spoken to came to pay their respects. Instructors brought flowers and food. Even the headmaster visited twice. But the visitor she was waiting for did not come until the 8th day. General Dravik Sorn walked into her room alone. He had to bend down to fit through the human-sized doorway. He stood at the foot of her bed, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. You could have killed me, Dravik finally said. Yes. Why did you not? Ava thought about the question. She thought about her brother on Europa. She thought about the soldiers who had died at Threshold. She thought about 12 years of hatred and pain. Because killing you would not have proven anything. Showing mercy did. Dravik nodded slowly. In my culture, when a warrior defeats another in formal combat, the loser becomes the winner's student. They learn from their superior until they are worthy of being called equals. I do not think I have anything to teach you. You have everything to teach me. Dravik reached into his pocket and pulled out a small medallion. It was old, worn smooth by years of handling. This belonged to my father. He gave it to me when I earned my first command. It represents the highest honor a Caliph warrior can receive. He placed it on Ava's bedside table. I am giving it to you. Ava stared at the medallion. I cannot accept this. You already have. Dravik turned toward the door. When you are recovered, find me. I have much to learn from humanity. Perhaps you can help me understand. He walked out without another word. Ava picked up the medallion. It was heavier than it looked. The metal was warm against her skin. She held it tight and smiled. 2 months after the challenge, Ava Reyes returned to active training. Her left arm still ached in the mornings. Her ribs protested during heavy exercise. The scars on her face had faded but would never disappear completely. Dr. Wells had offered cosmetic treatments to remove them, but Ava refused. She had earned those scars. She intended to keep them. The academy had changed in her absence. Human cadets were no longer mocked or isolated. The 3 remaining humans ate with mixed groups in the dining hall. They trained alongside species who had once considered them inferior. They were invited to social gatherings and study groups. But more than that, something had shifted in the way aliens looked at humans. There was respect now, caution, the understanding that small did not mean weak and fragile did not mean broken. Rillo had become Ava's closest friend. The small Brevian had woven a friendship braid using strands of Ava's hair that he had collected from the arena floor. It hung around his neck like a badge of honor. You made me brave, he told her one morning as they walked to combat training. Before I met you, I was afraid of everything, afraid of the bigger species, afraid of failing, afraid of speaking up. And now I know that being afraid is not the same as being weak. You were afraid in that arena. I could see it in your eyes, but you did not let fear stop you. Ava smiled. Fear is just your body telling you that something matters. The trick is using it as fuel instead of letting it paralyze you. Commander Yessin summoned Ava to his office that afternoon. The ancient Sorvine's crystalline body glowed with warm colors as she entered. Cadet Reyes, please sit. Ava sat in the chair provided for humanoid species. It was slightly too large for her, designed for bigger bodies. I have been watching your recovery with great interest, Yessin said. Your physical capabilities have returned to full capacity. Your academic performance has improved significantly, and your leadership scores have increased by 400%. I did not know we had leadership scores. We measure everything at this academy. Yessin's body pulsed with what might have been amusement. I am told that you have been mentoring younger cadets, helping them with training, defending them when senior cadets attempt intimidation. I just do what seems right. That is precisely what leadership means. Yessin floated closer. General Dravik Sorn has made a formal request. He wishes to take you on as his student in advanced strategic studies. This is unprecedented. He has never taken a student outside his own species. Ava remembered Dravik's words in the medical bay. She remembered the medallion that now hung around her neck. Hidden under her uniform. I accept. I thought you might. Yessin moved toward his window, looking out at the stars. The galaxy is changing, Cadet Reyes. Old hatreds are dying. New alliances are forming. Humanity's entry into the coalition has disrupted centuries of established order. Some species resent that. Many species resent that. But what happened in that arena changed something. 17 systems watched a human girl demonstrate what your species truly offers. Not technology, not military might, something far more valuable. What is that? Hope. Yessin turned back to face her. You showed the galaxy that the impossible is merely the untested. That defeat is only defeat if you accept it. That even the smallest being can change the course of history. Ava did not know what to say. She had not fought Dravik for political reasons. She had fought because it was the right thing to do. Go, Yessin said. General Sorn is waiting for you in strategic studies. Try not to defeat him again. His ego is still recovering. The semester ending ceremony took place 3 weeks later. New cadets were being welcomed to the academy. fresh faces from across the galaxy, nervous and excited and completely unprepared for what awaited them. Ava stood near the back of the assembly hall, watching the young beings receive their assignments. She spotted a young Caliph struggling with heavy equipment, scales flushed with embarrassment as bags and gear tumbled from his arms. She walked over and helped him pick everything up. The young Caliph stared at her face, at the scars, at the medallion that had slipped free from her uniform. "You are her," he whispered, "the human who fought General Sorn." "I am Ava, what is your name?" "Kellen," the young Caliph could barely speak. "My older brother told me stories about you. He said you beat the greatest warrior in our history." Ava finished gathering his belongings and handed them back. "I did not beat him. I survived until he understood something important." "What was that?" "That enemies can become allies, that hatred can become respect, that the strongest warriors are not always the biggest ones." She smiled at him. "Welcome to the Academy, Kellen. Work hard, be brave, and remember that getting knocked down is never the end. Only staying down is defeat." She walked away toward the Strategic Studies building where Dravik was waiting. The young Caliph watched her go with wonder in his eyes. Behind the observation window, General Dravik Sorn stood with his arms folded. He watched the small human woman cross the courtyard below, her stride confident, her shoulders straight despite the permanent injuries she carried. He had spent 12 years hating humanity. He had blamed them for everything he had lost. He had convinced himself that they were enemies, threats, dangers to be eliminated. One small human girl had shown him the truth. They were survivors, they were protectors, they were exactly what the galaxy needed. And he was proud to call one of them his student.